Now it's time for Lefties Losing It, starting with the Karens for Kamala, aka a white women for Kamala Harris Zoom call. Almost 200,000 lefties, including celebrities, all dialing in to support the border czar. And a warning, what you're about to see is A-grade level lefty insanity.
Karens for Kamala? I don't know.
You will wonder who is in charge, and you will be desperate to talk to some kind of manager, and there will not be one, which honestly is still really a struggle for me.
As white women, we are the ones that have the privilege, of course.
As a way to decenter the Eurocentric and white voices that are often at the forefront of our history books and our media.
I am here tonight embracing myself in your incredible, profound white women midst.
Thank you. I feel like we all just went to collective therapy. That was so beautiful, and we needed that so much.
Okay, I think we all need therapy after listening to that. I mean, this pep rally is truly the stuff of nightmares. A group of rich, white, lunatic women telling other women, oh, they should give up their personal interests in favour of race-based politics. And the clown show continued with alleged social media influencer Ariel Fedor, who goes by the name Mrs. Frazzled. By name and, well, by nature it seems, as she was introduced on the call as someone here to help gentle parent us through this election.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am so honored to speak today. I am like shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change.
I mean, what a patronising pest. Is she trying to sell us Amway, whip out a whiteboard and give us a hard sell? Seriously, go back to your knitting. And it gets worse. Enter into the chat white dudes for Kamala Harris, starting with this lefty who says he cried after Hillary Clinton lost in 2016.
I stood over my kid's bed and I wept. I wept because I felt like I let them down.
Must be a very therapeutic male bonding session.
You know, masculinity as a trope has been co-opted by the MAGA right into something that feeds into and exacerbates the loneliness epidemic, as well as the mental health crisis that many face that end up leading to really destructive behaviors.
Yes, it's a cult. It's a lefty total freak show. And I'll give you an example of the real white dudes for Kamala from a pro-Kamala pack, which has released a new ad against Donald Trump depicting conservative men as porn addicted.
Us MAGA Republicans banned abortion, but that's just the start.
That's just the start.
If Trump gets elected, we want the government involved in all aspects of your sex life.
Way more involved.
Way more involved.
When you have sexual intercourse, it should be illegal to use contraception. No pills, no condoms.
Your genitals are reserved for procreation.
If you freeze 12 eggs, you should be required to have 12 babies, or else you're a serial killer. And I'm definitely not a serial killer.
Are you?
Yes, no, this is serious. And these actors are Democrat voters, ladies and gentlemen. Say no more. Now to a regular lefty, Chelsea has been Handler. The alleged comedian has been disturbingly triggered by those JD Vance comments about childless cat ladies, prompting this rather bizarre and nonsensical meltdown.
No president in the history of the United States has ever been a mother. But maybe if she had 5 kids with 3 different men and a scandalous affair with a porn star and was convicted felon, that would be more palatable to Republican men. I mean, my God, are we tired? You sad, diet, Mountain Dew, drinking, couch humping, dolphin porn aficionado, all of us childless cat and dog ladies are going to go from childless and crushing it to childless and crushing you in November. And before you tell me he didn't really couch. Spare me. I grew up in New Jersey in the 80s where everyone had a couch in their basement, and I know a couch when I see one.
Yes, Chelsea, it's clear you've been deep in that basement many times doing God knows what. Brings a whole new meaning to crazy cat lady, as does this.
Being child-free threatens the patriarchy. We don't need no man. We can do everything he can. Busted. I'm a bold lib. Taylor's on my side. I'm a bold lib. MAGA starts to cry. What? I'm a bold lib. And Taylor's on my side. Yeah, she is. I'm a bold lib. MAGA starts to cry.
That catchy, isn't it? I mean, there's something very odd about those lefty DEI bold libs. And to the Olympics opening ceremony, which was universally condemned for mocking the world's 2.4 billion Christians. But guess what? We found a mega fan of the freak show. Enter Dr. Jill Biden.
It was spectacular. The rain did not dampen our spirits. And Casey, honestly, every step of the way, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, how are we going to top this? How are we going to top this?
Now, coming back to the nightmare fuel-inducing Karens for Kamala Zoom call.
As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat.
And the term BIPOC, by the way, stands for Black Indigenous People of Colour. And I mean, can you imagine the outrage if it was whites against Kamala or white men against Trump? But it's okay if it's the crazy far-left lunatic liberal women. And here is more of the person they chose to gentle parent them through the election, also known on social media as Mrs. Frazzled.
Oh no, catch a bubble, Uncle Norm. I think you said an inside thought out loud. Huh, is him wearing nail polish a big problem or a little problem? Oh no, does it hurt your body or your heart? Hi friends, it's time to share the Arctic now. Your turn is all done, got it. I know you like when people share with you. Well, you need to share the earth with everyone, plants, animals, and people.
I mean, this woman is seriously insufferable. It is A-grade level insanity. And step aside, Kamala Karens. The identity politics continues with white dudes for Harris, who even have mocked up what looks like official merchandise. Take a look at this. White dudes for Harris cap. Joining me now to unpack all of this is Newsweek's Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, good to see you. Look, let's start with this Karens for Kamala white women Zoom call. Is this the stuff of nightmares?
Well, you know, look, I can definitely tell you that I am not a white dude for Harris, and I will not be personally investing in one of those godforsaken trucker hats that I guess they're trying to gin up some enthusiasm for in the campaign. Look, this is what happens when you have a political party and a political movement, and that's the Democratic Party and contemporary American leftism, that is just obsessed with race. Now, you know, look, America has a complicated history with race. I'm born on Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Lincoln, of course, won the Civil War here in the U.S. He freed the slaves and so forth there. The point, though, is that through the Civil War and through the civil rights statutes that America passed 60 years ago, we moved past race, or so we thought. Why do these people want to bring it back to the forefront of our consciousness? We literally have fought wars. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Americans died in the Civil War to try to erase race consciousness from the American broader conscience. And now this party in the year 2024 is trying to bring it back. I think it's absolutely disgusting. I, for one, continue to see my fellow Americans not in terms of race, but based on the merit of their ideas and on their political ideologies and on actual substance, not on arbitrary characteristics. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party of the year 2024, when it comes to elevating race consciousness to the forefront of the political conversation, sounds suspiciously like the Democratic Party of the 1840s, 1850s pre-American Civil War, when race consciousness was at the center in a very, very different manner, actually.
And you know, imagine, Josh, if this was white men for Trump. Can you imagine the outrage then?
No, I mean, could you possibly imagine, to your question? I mean, I have plenty of white friends who are supporting Donald Trump, and like the thought of it, if they band together and form some sort of Instagram group, or God help us, some sort of TikTok video, if TikTok isn't banned here in the U.S. in the near future, which in my opinion it actually should be. But I mean, people would freak out. It would be coast to coast coverage. It would literally dominate cable news here on MSNBC, on CNN. The New York Times, Washington Post editorial boards would write up a lengthy editorial condemning this patriarchal white supremacy, this act of fascism, insurrection, jingoism, chauvinism, all these various isms that they're just repeated false use has totally deprived the meaning of it. Again, this is what happens when you have a party and a movement, Danica, that is just obsessed with race. And again, I plead to my fellow Americans and really just to Westerners all across the world, can we stop thinking so much about race and focus a little bit more on policies and ideas and that which really matters?
You'd think so, right? I mean, is that meant to be the heart of politics? But clearly not in this day and age. Now, look, the Democrats are desperately trying to rebrand Kamala Harris, lying about her previous comments. So here is Pete Buttigieg making it very clear that Kamala Harris was not in charge of the border.
Let's be very clear about this, because there has been a lot of mischaracterization. She was not in charge of the border. The Homeland Security Department is in charge of the border.
Even though we know it was widely reported that she was, in fact, put in charge of the border. The headlines are there to prove it. And here is The Hill today reporting that Harris does not support a fracking ban. That's the latest headline. They think that we've forgotten about these comments.
I am committed to passing a Green New Deal, creating clean jobs, and finally putting an end to fracking once and for all.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Josh, what are the Dems trying to achieve here?
What they're trying to achieve is nothing less than a full throttle, essentially an unprecedented gaslighting operation on the American people. That is really what they are trying to do. They're trying to make you forget your lying eyes and to not believe your lying ears. Look, this was not that long ago. Kamala Harris ran for president in the 2020 Democratic Party presidential primary. In fact, her campaign was so terrible that she bowed out in December 2019, about a month before the first primary votes were cast in the Iowa caucuses. And back then, because she was trying to compete with Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and various other far-left hacks in the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, she took a lot of very, very far-left stances. So she came out in favor of a total ban on fracking. She came out in favor of a total ban on offshore drilling. She supported the Green New Deal. She supports massive crushing electric vehicle mandates, which would essentially destroy the American auto industry, which is already being crushed by various other green mandates. She's trying to make illegal immigration for those coming across the U.S.-Mexico border not a crime, but just a mere fine or God forbid, a slap on the list. Back during the Black Lives Matter Antifa riots, the anarchy that was destroying America's urban corridors in the summer of 2020 after the death of our great martyr, St. George Floyd, Kamala Harris linked to a Black Lives Matter bail fund on her social media, trying to bail out the rioters who were looting and vandalizing, destroying property. By the way, insurance estimates of that summer of love total roughly $2 billion in assessed property damage. She's been on the wrong side of basically every single political issue that I have been aware of. And it's not just that they're trying to retcon her past and to make her out to be something that she's not. It's that they have to do it because her popularity is in the toilet. NBC News last summer actually did an in-depth analysis where they looked at the favorable, unfavorable splits of every vice president in American history, or at least that for which we have polling data. She was the #1 least popular vice president ever. 17 points underwater. And I think it was roughly 29% of Democrats in a poll that I saw a month or two ago. Only 29% said that they wanted her to be the nominee if Joe Biden drops out. It frankly was not that long ago that the conversation was how Joe Biden can dump Kamala Harris. They were trying to find someone slightly more palatable, more popular. So, I'm getting so much whiplash from the media's just constant jerking around here. Fortunately, I at least have some faith that the American people are fully capable of seeing through this outrageous gaslighting.
Well, fingers crossed, but you're right. There's so much toing and froing. It's impossible to keep up right now. Now, have a look at this. Google has omitted the assassination attempt of Donald Trump in search results. And it has also been reported that if you actually if you Google Donald Trump, users were only getting news about Kamala Harris. So, look, I decided to try it out for myself this morning to test this theory. And what do you know? It turns out that these reports are indeed accurate. I just find this astonishing. Josh, what's going on here?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what is going on here. What is going on here is that Google and the various other Silicon Valley big tech oligarchs are putting an unapologetic thumb on the scale in favor of their candidate, who is the candidate of the uniparty of the regime, that is Kamala Harris, and against the candidate who is challenging the regime uniparty status quo, which is Donald Trump. We have seen this time and time again. In fact, Google really started to first flex its muscles, so to speak, during the 2016 presidential election when Donald Trump eked out a victory over Hillary Clinton. Actually, if you go back then, so there was a PhD, a doctorate by the name of Robert Epstein, who's a sociologist. He studies statistics when it comes to kind of shifting public preferences. He testified in the United States Senate in 2017, a year after the 2016 election, that Google was single-handedly responsible for shifting upwards of 3 million votes from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton back in 2016. By the way, Dr. Epstein, who testified there, was a Hillary Clinton voter. So it's not like he had any skin in the game, so to speak, there. You know, this is one of the many reasons why I've been passionate over the years that America's massive tech companies, Google probably first and foremost, but other companies like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, really have to be regulated as common carriers in the Anglo-American common law tradition, the same way that ISPs, internet service providers, telephone providers, AT&T, Verizon here in the US, we have to regulate these companies the exact same way, because otherwise you're literally giving the power to actually decide elections, to shift election outcomes to unaccountable Birkenstock-wearing Silicon Valley dweebs with PhDs from Cal, Berkeley, and Stanford, rather than holding the actual people accountable as we the people are charged with doing under our American constitutional order.
I like that description. Absolutely spot on. It is frightening, to be quite honest. Now, let's take a look at the latest polling. According to Polling Market, Donald Trump is sitting at 61% compared to Kamala Harris at 37%. Now, Josh, this is a little bit different to some other polling we've seen recently where it shows the pair a bit more at neck and neck. What does this suggest in your view?
Look, I think that Donald Trump continues to be the favorite to win the election. Now, I am not guaranteeing a victory or anything like that. It's going to be close. It's definitely going to be close. But here's my rationale here. Look, if Biden was going to drop out of the race, obviously whoever replaced him was going to get an immediate enthusiasm boost in the polls. Democrats were desperate for Joe Biden to get out of the race. The media, which pretended to be doing an earnest job of trying to hold accountable the government for about a month, immediately turned on a dime. They snapped their fingers, and now they're in full-scale apologia propaganda mode again. But here is why I take some solace in that from a conservative perspective here. I take some solace in that because even now, after that bump, and after that high watermark, so to speak, Kamala Harris still trails Trump in most head-to-head polling on a national level. She still trails Donald Trump in most swing state polling. Now, admittedly, it's closer. The point is, this should be a real high watermark for her. Republicans have barely begun to fight back. They haven't really started to carpet bomb the airwaves, reminding her, as you and I have already discussed here, about her radical far-left record when it comes to energy policies, the environment, the war on cops, illegal immigration, healthcare, electric vehicles, you name it there. She has a horrible, horrible, horrible record, which is why she's never been a particularly successful politician. Again, her presidential bid went absolutely nowhere. When the voters actually learn about Kamala Harris, and frankly, when they hear her open her mouth, because she's not exactly the most eloquent woman in the world, when all of these things get exposed for the masses, the American people kind of cringe and try to look the other direction there. So again, it's going to be close. America's elections typically these days are close, but I continue to think that Donald Trump is more likely than not to win this election.
Yeah, look, fingers crossed, we're watching that polling closely. Now, Joe Biden has proposed sweeping reforms to the Supreme Court, including term limits and a binding code of conduct for its 9 justices. Josh, look, let's be honest, Kamala Harris will do the exact same thing and declare war on the court. Why are they looking to undermine the rule of law?
Well, Kamala Harris has actually already came out and said that she supports what Joe Biden's doing here. So they're basically attached at the hip, those two, which, by the way, is kind of one of the problems of trying to run a presidential bid while you're the sitting vice president, because you can only be your own thinker so much. So they're very much on the same page here. Look, Joe Biden, first of all, is a galling hypocrite on this. You know, I wrote a column on this a few years ago, actually. Joe Biden rose to the floor of the United States Senate in 2005 to applaud the Senate Judiciary Democrats back in 1937, who overwhelmingly rejected Democratic President FDR's infamous court packing scheme back during the New Deal of the 1930s. Joe Biden in 2005 was singing their praises for rejecting this idea that we would overthrow our established inherited traditions and somehow try to run roughshod over a coordinated branch of government. Here we are 19 years later. He's mentally and physically deficient at this point, in the throes of a palpable senescence. And sure enough, at this point, he is an empty vessel for the Democratic Party to just kind of project whatever they want onto him. So I'm not surprised that he comes out in favor of this, saying that he would have been dead opposed to 20 years ago. Fortunately for Republicans, one, what Joe Biden's talking about is not popular. Two, more accurately, it's actually outright illegal. So you cannot statutorily provide term limits for the justices, because the Constitution very clearly provides in Article 3, Section 1, Clause 1, that justices shall serve, quote, during good behavior, which has been unanimously interpreted to mean life tenure. So to overrule that, you need a constitutional amendment. You can't do it by congressional statute. Same thing for this so-called ethics proposal there. You know, if you're trying to tell them when they can or cannot recuse themselves from cases, you can't do that either, because that's part of the, quote, judicial power, which Article 3 of the Constitution speaks. So these things are actually in the Constitution. You can't just pass a congressional statute to overrule it. Ultimately, what's going on here, I think, and this is really kind of the main thrust of the point here, what's ultimately going on here is that the left in America cannot stand the fact that the United States Supreme Court is maybe the only institution of major political, legal, cultural, or civilizational salience in this country that is not entirely controlled by the left. It is not a hard right court, it is a center right court, but it is not a left-wing court. And for that reason, and that reason alone, the left is trying to destroy it.
Yeah, that's very clear. Good luck to them. I can't see this getting up. Josh Hammer, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.